They grow lush vegetables without modern tools. They don't rely on chemical fertilizers. They barely use electricity. And yet, Amish gardens consistently produce better yields than most modern homesteads. How do they do it? What do they know that we don't? In this video, we're revealing 6 of the most surprising Amish gardening secrets. Methods so simple, natural, and effective, you'll wonder why more people aren't using them. These aren't general tips. These are real techniques passed down through generations. And only a handful of outsiders have ever truly paid attention. Are you one of the 1% who's ready to learn? Number 1. Eggshell and boiled water fertilizer. Let's talk about something so simple yet so smart that barely anyone outside the Amish even thinks to try it. We're talking about kitchen waste, specifically eggshells and boiled water. These aren't just trash to the Amish. To them, they're tools. Powerful, free tools that help build rich, healthy soil without any chemicals or expensive store-bought fertilizers. And once you understand how they do it, it'll change how you look at your leftovers forever. First off, let's talk about eggshells. The Amish don't throw them away. Ever. Every time they crack an egg, whether it's for breakfast, baking, or feeding the chickens, those shells are rinsed, dried, and saved. Why? Because eggshells are one of the easiest and most accessible sources of calcium you can get your hands on. And calcium, if you didn't know, is absolutely essential for healthy plant development. It helps with root strength, prevents diseases like blossom end rot in tomatoes, and supports overall cell structure in plants. Now here's where it gets interesting. Instead of just tossing whole or broken eggshells directly into compost, which takes time to break down, the Amish often crush them into tiny pieces or even grind them into a powder. This way, the calcium is more readily available to the soil and to the plants that need it. You'll often see Amish gardeners scattering this crushed eggshell around the base of plants like tomatoes, peppers, or squash. It slowly releases calcium into the soil as it breaks down, feeding the plants consistently over time. But there's a second reason they love eggshells, and it's something most gardeners miss. Crushed eggshells act as a natural pest deterrent. Ever had a problem with slugs or snails? Try walking barefoot over crushed eggshells. Exactly. Slugs and soft-bodied pests avoid crawling over the sharp, jagged pieces. So when you create a little barrier of eggshells around your vulnerable plants, you're basically building a no-entry zone for those destructive bugs. It's genius in its simplicity. No sprays, no traps, just something you already had in your kitchen trash. Now let's get to the boiled water. This might be one of the most underrated tricks in the book. When the Amish boil eggs, potatoes, or even certain vegetables, they never pour that water down the drain. Instead, they let it cool, then use it to water their garden. Why? Because that water is packed with micronutrients and minerals that leach out during the boiling process. Think about it. When you boil eggs, some of the calcium from the shells ends up in the water. When you boil potatoes, trace minerals like potassium and phosphorus seep out too. Rather than waste that, the Amish repurpose it as liquid fertilizer. It's especially useful during planting season or in the early stages of growth, when young plants need a boost. They'll collect this nutrient-rich water over a few days, store it in jugs or watering cans, and then give their seedlings a nice drink that helps them grow strong from the very start. This method doesn't cost a dime, doesn't rely on anything synthetic, and doesn't contribute to waste. It's the kind of zero-waste, full-circle thinking that defines Amish gardening as a whole. And what makes this technique even more effective is how naturally it fits into daily life. There's no need for schedules or calendars or apps to remind them when to fertilize. It's built into their cooking routine. Boil some eggs, cool the water, water the plants, crack some shells, grind them down, sprinkle them around the roots. It's all integrated, seamless, and consistent. That's one reason why their gardens are so resilient season after season. Also worth noting, when they do add eggshells or use boiled water, they're careful about quantities. They're not dumping a whole gallon of starchy potato water on one plant. It's spread out, it's balanced, and it's used in combination with other natural fertilizers like compost or manure. This moderation ensures the plants get a full range of nutrients without anything being overdone. That kind of intuitive knowledge comes from generations of experience, just watching and learning how the earth responds over time. And here's something that might surprise you. Even their kids know these techniques. Amish children learn from a very young age how to prepare garden beds, identify deficiencies in plants, and correct them with natural remedies like eggshells or boiled water. It's part of their culture, passed down like a recipe or a family story. This knowledge doesn't come from textbooks or YouTube. It comes from living the lifestyle every single day. So the next time you're about to toss out those eggshells or drain that pot of water into the sink, stop and think about the Amish. They see value where most people see waste. And that's one of the biggest reasons their gardens thrive. Because when you work with nature instead of against it, even in small ways like this, it pays off. And stronger plants, richer soil, fewer pests, and more food on the table. Number 2, coffee grounds as soil enhancer. Used coffee grounds might seem like trash to most people, but in Amish gardens, they're considered a secret weapon. What makes this everyday waste so valuable? The Amish have figured it out over generations of close observation and experience with the land. Coffee grounds are rich in nitrogen, one of the 3 key nutrients that plants need to grow. The other 2 being phosphorus and potassium. Nitrogen is essential for leafy growth. It helps plants develop lush, vibrant foliage. And when your greens are green, it usually means the roots are strong and the plant is thriving. But here's what's interesting. The Amish don't just dump coffee grounds anywhere. They apply them selectively depending on the type of plants and the state of the soil. Let's break down what used coffee grounds actually contain, and even after brewing, the grounds still hold around 2% nitrogen by volume, along with small traces of phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, and copper. And while that may not sound like a lot, it's just the right amount to give plants a steady, slow-release nutrient source. It's gentle, so you're not going to burn the roots like you might with synthetic fertilizers. That's one reason why the Amish favor this method. It's natural, it's safe, and it works over time. Texture is another big part of the story. Coffee grounds are gritty, and when they're mixed into heavy clay-like soils, they help loosen things up. This improves drainage, which is crucial in garden beds that tend to hold too much water. At the same time, in sandy soils, grounds can help retain moisture by giving the soil more organic structure. The Amish understand their soil types intimately. They often know by touch whether it's too compact, too dry, or too porous. And coffee grounds are one of the tools they reach for to fine-tune those conditions. And get this, coffee grounds don't just help plants grow, they also feed the soil itself. As the grounds break down, they encourage microbial activity, which is a fancy way of saying they help good bacteria and fungi thrive underground. That microbial life is key to soil health. It helps decompose organic material, unlock nutrients, and protect roots from disease. Think of it like this. The soil is alive and coffee grounds are like food for the whole underground ecosystem. Another detail the Amish pay attention to is balance. Used coffee grounds are slightly acidic, though less so than fresh grounds. For acid-loving plants like blueberries, azaleas, or roses, they're ideal. But the Amish won't usually use coffee grounds around plants that prefer alkaline soil, like cabbage, broccoli, or Brussels sprouts. Instead, they might neutralize the mix by combining the grounds with wood ash or lime, depending on what they're growing. It's a hands-on, intuitive process. Not every garden is the same, and they don't treat it that way. Now, there's a common myth that coffee grounds deter pests like slugs and snails. Some Amish gardeners believe in this, especially when they sprinkle dry grounds in a ring around young plants. It's thought the rough texture is irritating to soft-bodied pests, kind of like walking barefoot on gravel. There's also some anecdotal evidence that coffee's caffeine content might act as a mild insect repellent. While scientific studies are still limited, traditional gardeners in Amish communities often swear by it. And with the results they see, who can blame them? Another way Amish households use coffee grounds is in composting. Grounds are considered a green compost material, meaning they're high in nitrogen. But they're also dry and fine, which can help balance out wetter kitchen scraps like fruit peels or vegetable cores. In a typical Amish compost pile, you'll find layers: straw, manure, leaves, kitchen waste, and somewhere in there, plenty of spent coffee grounds. The pile heats up, breaks down over time, and turns into rich, crumbly humus that's returned to the garden in spring. The best part? This entire process doesn't cost a dime. It's a closed-loop system. Coffee is brewed, the grounds are reused, and the plants benefit. There's no need for store-bought fertilizers, no fancy equipment, and no complicated formulas. Just everyday knowledge passed down through generations. And it's not limited to massive farms either. Even Amish families with small kitchen gardens or greenhouse beds use this method. One more practical tip. If you're using coffee grounds like the Amish do, don't pile them up too thickly. A thin layer, no more than ½ an inch, is enough. If it's too thick, grounds can compact and form a crust that water struggles to get through. Better yet, mix them into the top inch or two of soil with your hands or a small rake. Some Amish gardeners even blend the grounds with dried leaves or sawdust before applying. It's all about finding that right balance. Number 3. Manure management for fertilization. When it comes to fertilizing their gardens, the Amish take a completely different approach from the average person relying on store-bought products. One of their most effective, time-tested methods is using animal manure. Not just as is, but through a very intentional composting and application process that transforms waste into powerful, nutrient-dense fertilizer. It's not just about dumping cow droppings on the ground. It's a whole system built on observation, balance, and respect for the soil. In the Amish world, manure isn't waste, it's a resource. Whether it comes from cows, horses, chickens, or even sheep, it all gets used in different ways depending on the crop and the time of year. Each type of manure brings something slightly different to the soil. For example, cow manure is known for being well-balanced, relatively low in nitrogen compared to poultry manure, and safe to use in large quantities once composted. Horse manure, on the other hand, is higher in fiber and breaks down more slowly, adding bulk to the soil. Chicken manure is rich in nitrogen and phosphorus, but it's also more hot, meaning it needs more time to compost before it's safe for plants. The key here is composting. The Amish don't use fresh manure directly on crops because it can burn roots, spread disease, or encourage the wrong kind of microbial activity in the soil. Instead, they allow it to break down over time. The compost piles are typically set up away from living areas and water sources, often near the barn or on the edge of a field. These piles include more than just manure. They're also layered with straw, hay, or old bedding from animal stalls. This carbon material balances out the high nitrogen content of the manure and helps the compost process run smoothly. The piles are turned regularly, either with pitchforks or small farm tools. Sometimes even with the help of horse-drawn equipment, depending on the size of the farm. This turning process adds oxygen and keeps the temperature consistent, both of which are crucial for killing off pathogens and weed seeds. If you've ever been near an Amish farm, you might have seen steam rising from a compost pile on a cool morning. That's how you know the microbial activity is alive and well inside the pile. After anywhere from 3 months to a full year, the composted manure is dark, crumbly, and rich smelling. Not stinky or slimy like fresh manure. This finished product is then applied directly to garden beds, usually in the fall or very early spring. The idea is to give it time to settle into the soil before planting begins. In some cases, Amish farmers will work it lightly into the soil using hand tools, but they often prefer a more passive method, letting snow, rain, and time do the work of carrying nutrients deeper into the ground. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Amish gardeners are highly in tune with their soil. They'll make decisions about manure use based on what they're growing. Heavy feeders like corn, pumpkins, or squash get the richest compost. Leafy greens or root vegetables like carrots may get less to avoid an overload of nitrogen, which could lead to lush leaves but poor root development. They also rotate where they spread their manure. Unlike modern agriculture, where fields are hit with the same fertilizers year after year, The Amish spread composted manure differently every season to keep the soil ecosystem in balance. This practice also helps prevent the buildup of excess nutrients, which can lead to runoff or environmental issues. It's all about maintaining a living, breathing relationship with the land, not just extracting as much as possible from it. Another subtle trick they use is layering. Rather than tilling all the compost into the soil, some Amish gardeners will apply it on the surface like mulch. This no-till method protects the soil from erosion, feeds earthworms and microorganisms, and retains moisture. Over time, rain naturally leaches the nutrients down into the root zone. It's low effort, high reward, and fits perfectly with their broader philosophy of working with nature instead of against it. And finally, one thing that sets the Amish apart is patience. They're not trying to rush results. Their composting process may take months longer than a commercial grower would tolerate, but the payoff is in the health and resilience of their gardens. Their plants grow strong without artificial inputs, and their soil gets richer every year. That kind of long-term thinking is rare, but it's exactly why their methods have stood the test of time. Number 4, companion planting with marigolds. So here's one of those gardening tricks that sounds too simple to be true, but the Amish have been using it for generations, and it works like magic. Companion planting with marigolds. And not just because it looks pretty, though let's be honest, marigolds do add a nice splash of color, but because it's one of the most effective natural ways to protect your garden from pests without ever touching a bottle of chemicals. It's a natural line of defense that's low effort, low cost, and ridiculously effective when done right. Now, when we talk about companion planting, we're talking about the practice of growing certain plants together because they help each other out. It's kind of like matchmaking for plants. Some combinations make your garden more productive, some improve flavor, others attract beneficial bugs, or repel the bad ones. The Amish are masters at this because they rely on a balanced ecosystem to keep things healthy without synthetic pesticides or fertilizers. And marigolds, they're like the bodyguards of the vegetable world. Let's start with the pests they're known to fight off. First, aphids. These tiny, soft-bodied insects are some of the most common garden pests, and they love feasting on tender new growth. They'll suck the sap out of your plants and leave them weak, curled, and stunted. Marigolds emit a scent that repels aphids, especially French marigolds. Plant them near tomatoes, beans, and peppers, and you'll notice the difference. Then there are nematodes, specifically root knot nematodes. You don't see them because they're microscopic, but the damage they cause to roots is real. They invade the root systems of crops like carrots, potatoes, and tomatoes, creating little knots and swelling that interfere with water and nutrient uptake. Marigolds produce natural compounds called thiophenies in their roots, and these are toxic to many types of nematodes. When marigolds are planted in and around the beds or rotated through garden rows, they essentially clean up the soil for the next crop. It's a preventive move that a lot of folks miss, but it's one of those old-school Amish secrets that still works wonders today. Here's another bonus. Marigolds are known to attract beneficial insects like ladybugs and lacewings. These good bugs love to snack on aphids and other soft-bodied pests. So while marigolds are chasing off the bad guys, they're also pulling in the good guys that act like tiny flying pest control agents. And we can't ignore their deterrent effect on beetles, especially the Mexican bean beetle and cabbage loopers. These are common headaches in Amish gardens, and marigolds have shown to at least slow them down or redirect them. The strong scent of marigolds can mask the smell of host crops, confusing pests that are drawn in by smell. It's not foolproof, but it makes a difference. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. The Amish don't just toss marigolds anywhere and hope for the best. They're intentional about placement. For example, they'll plant marigolds in rows or borders around beds of crops they know are more susceptible to pests, things like cucumbers, squash, lettuce, and beans. This creates what some people call a scent barrier. If a pest is coming in looking for its favorite meal, like tender lettuce leaves, it first has to get through that marigold perimeter. And often it just doesn't bother. They'll also plant marigolds in between rows of tomatoes. Tomatoes are like pest magnets, right? But when you slip marigolds between the rows or even right next to tomato plants, aphids and whiteflies are far less of an issue. Plus, the soil benefits from marigold root compounds, especially if you till them under at the end of the season, which adds another level of nematode control for the next year. And remember, it's not just any marigold. The Amish prefer French marigolds, Tagetes patula, over African varieties. French marigolds are bushier, bloom more consistently, and they produce more of those beneficial root chemicals. Also, they don't get as tall, so they won't overshadow your vegetables or compete for light. One more pro tip they use: interplanting marigolds with herbs like basil and dill. The combo of scents confuses a wider range of pests, and it creates a diverse micro-ecosystem that helps everything thrive. It's not just pest control, it's about fostering a natural balance where things support each other instead of fighting for survival. It's honestly brilliant in its simplicity. You're not spraying, you're not applying. You're just planting the right flowers in the right places, and over time your garden becomes more self-sufficient. You need fewer interventions, your soil gets healthier, and your harvest improves. Most people overlook marigolds because they think of them as ornamental, but for the Amish, they're a key part of a larger strategy, one that combines old knowledge, natural processes, and a deep understanding of how plants interact. Companion planting with marigolds isn't just a cute idea. It's a proven system that protects crops, boosts yields, and keeps the garden alive and kicking, all without synthetic help. And maybe that's why only 1% really know about it. It's easy to miss the wisdom that's been quietly working in the background for generations. But once you've seen it in action, you'll never plant a garden without marigolds again. Number 5, strategic planting schedules. The Amish follow incredibly detailed planting schedules that most people outside their communities have never even heard of. Their system is based on observation, passed down wisdom, and a deep connection to the natural growing rhythms of their environment. Instead of relying on apps or store-bought calendars, they use physical signs, like soil warmth, plant behavior, and even insect movement to guide their decisions. What makes their methods so unique is how they stagger the entire life cycle of plants across different growing environments to extend the season, reduce risk, and get multiple harvests from the same garden beds. Everything starts indoors. The Amish begin germinating seeds long before it's safe to plant outside. In late winter or very early spring, they sow seeds inside their homes or cellars where the temperature is more stable. They might use wooden racks, old bread pans, or handcrafted seed trays placed near south-facing windows. Because most Amish communities avoid electric grow lights, natural sunlight becomes a precious resource. This early start gives the seedlings time to establish strong roots while there's still frost on the ground, outdoors. As soon as the seedlings are strong enough, usually after they've developed their first true leaves, they're moved into heated greenhouses. These greenhouses are typically simple in design but highly efficient. Many Amish use wood-burning stoves for heat or passive solar energy, depending on their Ordnung, the rules of their specific Amish group. The goal here isn't just to keep the plants alive, but to let them thrive in a more open environment, where they can adjust to greater fluctuations in humidity and airflow without being shocked by outdoor conditions. Once the weather begins to warm up and the seedlings are hardier, they're transitioned again, this time into unheated greenhouses. These are sometimes called cold frames or passive tunnels. While these structures don't offer the warmth of a heated house, they do protect the young plants from wind, nighttime chills, and heavy rains. This is a crucial stage because it helps plants gradually adapt to outdoor conditions without going into shock. It's a form of natural hardening off that doesn't require fancy gear, just smart timing and close monitoring. Then comes the final move: transplanting outdoors under low hoops. These are mini tunnels made from bent metal rods or flexible piping, covered with row covers, mesh, or greenhouse plastic. They warm the soil faster than open beds, hold in moisture, and protect plants from pests and temperature swings. This stage allows the Amish to get their crops into the ground, earlier than usual, sometimes several weeks ahead of standard planting times. It also allows for an extended harvest into fall, long after most people have pulled their last tomatoes from the vine. What's truly genius about this system is the way it creates a continuous cycle. While one set of plants is maturing under hoops, the next is already growing in the greenhouse, and a third might just be germinating indoors. This rotation allows for efficient use of time, space, and resources. Rather than planting everything at once, they stagger each stage for continuous production. That means fresh vegetables throughout the growing season, not just during a short summer window. The Amish also make use of succession planting, planting the same crop multiple times at intervals to ensure a steady yield. For example, instead of sowing all their lettuce or radish seeds at once, they plant a new batch every 1 to 2 weeks. This way, they don't end up with a surplus that bolts or goes bad. It also keeps soil in constant use and prevents bare patches from becoming weed magnets. Another benefit of this staggered schedule is risk management. If an early frost kills one batch, another is waiting behind it in a safer environment. This kind of built-in insurance keeps their food supply steady and reliable, which is especially important for communities that depend heavily on what they grow. What's especially impressive is that most of this is done without digital tools. Some Amish families keep handwritten planting logs, noting frost dates, bloom patterns, and moon cycles. Others rely purely on memory and tradition. Online communities like Reddit's Eggshell homesteading have shared observations of Amish planting systems, admiring how precise and effective their non-electric methods can be. Sources like seedtocrop.net document the same principles, confirming that this multi-stage planting system increases yield and plant health even in less than ideal climates. Number 6. Soil pH monitoring with weed indicators. The Amish have long mastered the art of reading the land without relying on modern tools, and one of the most fascinating techniques they use is monitoring soil pH through weed growth. Instead of testing soil with pH strips or electronic meters, they simply observe which plants grow where. Certain weeds thrive only under specific soil conditions, particularly when it comes to acidity or alkalinity. For example, if sheep sorrel, a low-growing plant with reddish stems and small arrow-shaped leaves, starts taking over your garden, that's a clear sign your soil is too acidic. Sorrel typically appears in soil with a pH below 5.5. Its presence in abundance suggests that the conditions aren't ideal for most vegetables or fruiting plants. That's a signal the Amish take seriously. Rather than fighting the weed, they read it like a message. Once an indicator like sorrel shows up, they know it's time to rebalance the soil. One common method they use to raise the pH, make it less acidic, is adding wood ash or crushed limestone to the soil. These natural amendments neutralize the excess acidity and slowly shift the pH back into the optimal range. The Amish also make use of bone meal, powdered eggshells, and even diluted milk in some cases, especially in small-scale applications. These are cost-effective organic ways to correct the issue without harming the ecosystem of the garden. Another plant to look out for is plantain weed, which thrives in compacted, acidic soil. Dandelions, on the other hand, prefer slightly alkaline to neutral conditions and can indicate different soil problems like low calcium. By knowing which weeds grow in which conditions, the Amish can adjust their soil management strategies without ever needing to dig into a lab report. This observational method also helps with long-term garden planning. For instance, if acidic-loving weeds dominate a specific plot every season, the Amish may choose to grow acid-tolerant crops there, like potatoes, blueberries, or radishes, while they gradually improve the soil. It's a slower, more natural method, but it allows the land to guide the gardener instead of forcing immediate changes. Weed indicators also tell more than just pH levels. They can give clues about drainage, soil compaction, nutrient imbalances, and even sunlight exposure. For example, chickweed tends to show up in moist, fertile, slightly acidic soils, which might be perfect for certain leafy greens. By learning how to read these natural signs, Amish gardeners stay in tune with their environment and avoid wasting time or money on unnecessary inputs. This technique is especially useful in off-grid living where resources are limited. It's sustainable, intuitive, and aligns perfectly with the Amish philosophy of working with nature rather than against it. Anyone can apply this method, no matter the size of the garden or the level of experience. It just takes patience and attention. Keeping a simple log of what weeds appear and where over time can offer invaluable insights into the health and chemistry of your soil.